Let's begin with this Fox News alert. The Senate Judiciary Committee still has not ruled out a hearing to happen on Monday for the woman accusing Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault decades ago. Christine Blasey Ford could testify, could not testify. We're waiting. Ford's attorney in a letter says they are willing to talk about quote unquote fair terms for her hearing next week, but ruling out testimony on Monday, suggesting Thursday instead. Sources also saying Ford's legal team is calling for the judge to testify first and wants only members of the committee, not attorneys, to question Dr. Ford. You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Melissa Francis, Fox Business Network anchor Dagan McDowell, Fox News contributor Jessica Tarloff, and in the center seat, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, Pete Hegseth. A civilian salute for us. Right. So meaningful from a veteran. Thank you very much.
Oh, you wrote the recent book on it.
Well, thank you.
Which was fantastic, by the way.
I appreciate that. All right. Should we get
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's get to it. Judge Kavanaugh, for his part, has told the Senate committee he will testify on Capitol Hill on Monday. And he says he wants to clear his name. President Trump also reiterating his support for Kavanaugh during a rally in Las Vegas last night. Watch it.
I'm not saying anything about anybody else, but I want to tell you that Brett Kavanaugh is one of the finest human beings you will ever have the privilege of knowing or meeting. A great intellect, a great gentleman, an impeccable reputation. We got to let it play out, but I want to tell you, he is a fine, fine person. We just got Neil Gorsuch, I told you. We're going to get Brett.
Well, it hadn't happened, and now it has. A tweet on the matter. Let's get first to Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel live on Capitol Hill. Good to see you, Mike.
Harris, good afternoon. Good to see you as well. Fox has told the Senate Judiciary Committee is not ruling out the possibility of a Monday hearing, even though Professor Christine Blasey Ford has requested Thursday. Earlier, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell tried to reassure conservative voters that Judge Brett Kavanaugh will be confirmed.
So, my friends, keep the faith. Don't get rattled by all of this. We're going to plow right through it and do our job.
The initial offer from Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley was a hearing Monday where lawmakers could hear from both Judge Kavanaugh and his accuser, Professor Christine Blasey Ford. Kavanaugh has categorically and unequivocally denied her allegation, and he says he's committed to defending his integrity. Kavanaugh wrote Grassley last night, writing, quote, "Thank you for the invitation to appear before the Senate Committee on the Judiciary on Monday, September 24. I will be there. I look forward to the opportunity to testify before the committee." Judiciary Committee Democrats are out with a letter of their own. They've written to FBI Director Christopher Wray, writing, quote, "We are increasingly concerned by reports of alleged death threats against her, the hacking of her email, and the harassment and intimidation Dr. Blasey Ford has faced since being forced into the spotlight late last week." President Trump weighing in on Twitter, writing, "Senator Feinstein and the Democrats held the letter for months, only to release it with a bang after the hearings were over. Done very purposefully to obstruct and resist and delay. Let her testify or not and take the vote." And now all are waiting to see if or when there will be a hearing.
I do hope that she testifies, but I deeply respect her hesitation, given the ways in which her life and her family's life have already been disrupted by attacks, by disrespect, by death threats.
Chairman Grassley is expected to meet and speak with members of the Judiciary Committee. Bottom line, he needs Republicans to stay unified, since Democrats are expected to be a no on Judge Kavanaugh. Harris?
Mike Emanuel, thank you very much. Pete Hegseth in the center seat today. The president now has tweeted about this. We can pop that up. I have no doubt that if the attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she says, charges would have immediately been filed with local law enforcement authorities by either her or her loving parents. I ask that she bring those filings forward so that we can learn date, time, and place, exclamation point. Your thoughts?
You know, she deserves to be heard, and everyone agrees on that. I think the terms her lawyers have put out are unreasonable at one level, and intentionally so, that Kavanaugh has to testify first and then she gets to come on after and say, no, that's not how it happened, without the ability to him to then at least clear his name and reply back. I think a lot of things missed here. Senator Feinstein knew about this. It's not about she knew about it. I think she was careful with the information. But if you wanted to get to the truth, you could have carefully, when privately meeting with Judge Kavanaugh, said, I have this person who wants to remain anonymous that said this happened. Can you talk to me about it? Instead, someone on that side leaked the name gets out there. Now her life has been turned over, terribly so, and may not even get the opportunity to present it the way that she wants to. So I think this is ultimately a delay and pray strategy by Democrats who want this to go on as long as they can and pray that something else comes out and hope that, the testimony goes sideways, there's another accuser, some piece of evidence miraculously shows up from 36 years later. This is going to be a he said, she said, and Democrats are saying, effectively, men are believed too often and women are not believed, when I have a right to believe who I want to believe and you have a right to believe who you want to believe, and we should look at the facts and let people talk and then vote.
Historically, women have not been listened to, and so that's what's kind of brought us up to a #MeToo moment. But what you're saying, Pete, and I completely understand that, is that really what this is, or is this something different politically? Jessica?
This is obviously political, and it's political at the highest levels, but that doesn't take away from what is actually going on here, which Harris just alluded to there. Women have not been believed throughout history when this occurs. I think it's only 30% of women who are sexually assaulted report it. The president's tweet is completely out of line and inappropriate. We can just look at the church scandal that just blew up to know that victims of sexual assault do not report it.
Many of them under the age of 18. And almost all of them, no other person in the room to report it.
Exactly. Very similar circumstances there. And I'm not saying I want to hear from both of them.
Not in this case, because according to her, there were other people who reported it in the room.
Well, who denies that it happened at this point? We can subpoena Mark Judge. We can subpoena the other person that was allegedly in the house.
Can I ask?
And we can have an FBI investigation, which is what Anita Hill got. The president loves to order FBI investigations. I have no idea, except for the fact that he wants to protect.
Whoa, step back.
The FBI should be looking into Hillary Clinton. The FBI should be looking at Fusion GPS. The FBI should be looking at Bruce.
That's not ordering the FBI.
He goes on Twitter all the time and says that that's what he wants.
You think the FBI would ignore him if he actually ordered an investigation?
Oh, no, what I'm saying is he talks about it all the time, but he says he doesn't want to do it for
about this next move that Democrats say that they are willing to make, because I don't quite understand it. So the statute of limitations has run out on this potentially becoming a crime having to do with Ford and Kavanaugh and the allegations. But Democrats are now saying that even if he gets confirmed, they're going to continue their own independent investigation. What does that accomplish?
Well, they need to go back to the state level, because this is not a sexual assault is not a federal crime. It is a state crime. And so this would theoretically need to be looked at by local authorities in the state of Maryland where this allegedly happened. But because, again, that's the issue.
Statute of limitations has run out. So can these Democrat lawmakers force an issue with local law enforcement?
They would have to tell Christine Blasey Ford that she would need to go to local law enforcement would be but again, this is a distraction, because again, if the issue is making all people listen to women when they say that they have been sexually assaulted, the Democrats are not helping women, because they're portraying all men as liars and all women as truth seekers and all women as victims, quite frankly, in this scenario.
That's an interesting point.
It's the definition of sexism when you say all men lie, all women tell the truth. That is not something that we're born with based on gender, based on genetics. And that's why you need to have the accuser and the accused. The accuser goes first and says in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, in front of the American people, this is what happened to me. She's cross-examined, and then Brett Kavanaugh gets to defend himself. That's how you make a judgment about whether someone is telling the truth.
So why does she want to go first? Why do you think she wants to go first?
She wants him to go first.
She wants him to go first.
She wants him to go first. She wants him to go first so that he can't come up and then rebut and what she's said. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
in a
how do
normal
you
situation,
know what to deny if you haven't heard
Precisely.
directly
Thank
from
you.
her?
But this is what I would say. I mean, this is part of Brett Kavanaugh's statement from today. I believe it was earlier today. Since the moment I first heard this allegation, I've categorically and unequivocally denied it. I remain committed to defending my integrity. He wants to come forward at the soonest possible time. He doesn't give himself any wiggle room at all. He is absolutely emphatic. And if you had even a hint that anything had ever happened in your past like this, it would be really dangerous to come out this strong.
Well, and it's dangerously, exposing Republicans, too, who are backing him, because we don't know which party. She hasn't given a date. She hasn't given those details. So for him to categorically say this didn't happen,
Well, you
would
must
have to be very
certain.
confident.
But you
right?
make people also do crazy things like what Ed Whalen did, where he went on a tweet storm last night saying that Brett Kavanaugh couldn't have done it because he went on Zillow or whatever and pulled up some floor plans.
It was bizarre.
And he put the blame on Brett Kavanaugh's classmate, who has been supportive of Kavanaugh and also was clearly close with Dr. Ford. She even said
that's
that
wrong.
It's all what
we can
Dagan
agree.
called
No,
it,
but
a distraction.
by categorically denying it.
This is a distraction. And I want to say one
yes.
thing. The fact that Democrats are trying to act like we're the party of women, well, somebody who's a Democrat leaked this woman's name.
Exactly. And I've been calling for that name for days. Washington Post, interviewing reporters.
Right.
Are you looking for the name?
And by the way, they are using this woman and her reputation as a battering ram in a political ambush.
There's also
they are not standing up for her and the rights of women. They're standing up for their own backsides.
I don't think that's fair.
It is fair. She didn't want to come forward. I mean, she was very emphatic about that.
I hope that it wasn't Senator Feinstein herself that leaked this.
Ooh, and I hadn't heard that.
Well, that would be a complete violation of what Dr. Ford had asked. So
Someone
it doesn't matter. Let me just put this out there in terms of it being a Democrat. Dianne Feinstein has been around for a long time. She knows where the snakes are among her group, don't you think? I mean, I give her credit for knowing who would leak and who wouldn't. I'm not entirely convinced that she wouldn't know who would have done this. And maybe even, I mean, since we're kind of going down that lane of guessing because we don't really know.
No.
But it's hard for me to believe, Pete, that a top Democrat wouldn't know who the leakers are among them because they know each other better. I mean, that's
if someone
their
wants to get it
group.
out, they're going to find a way to get it out. There's no doubt about that. And this isn't just the distraction.
And
it's
it
the
matters.
It does matter. Also, double standards matter. Look at clear examples. Look at Keith Ellison, the current #2 at the DNC. No, really. I mean, the guy documented
day it came out,
accusations.
I said investigated. The DNC said that they would
Why
look into it. They should
why is he
be
still
looking
running
into
for
it.
office? Why does he still represent the Democratic Party at the #2 position when she went to a doctor a year ago with claims saying I'm being physically abused?
I don't disagree with you. I
just-
think that this is
so
across the board. A
where is
majority of the
Kirsten
people
Gillibrand?
taken down
Where
by
is
Me
Kirsten
Too actually
Gillibrand?
have
Where
been
are
liberals.
those
Where is
women,
Kirsten
Jeff?
Gillibrand?
She's out there.
Is she saying that he should leave?
Oh, not
Is
on
she saying
Keith
that Keith
Ellison.
Ellison's
She's
gone?
talking
She's
about the
screaming
FBI
about Brett
investigation.
Kavanaugh. Why isn't she screaming about Keith Ellison?
You can scream about both,
How
by
about
the way.
exactly?
You
That
should
is
scream about
an
both,
available
totally.
option. But saying
You
that
want
this
to.
is a
She's not
distraction is not saying that there is any credibility to what Dr.
But the
Ford
double
is
standard
alleging. You want to talk
exposes
about
the
Keith
political
Ellison.
core. The double
Right.
standard exposes the political core.
We will, no doubt, revisit this topic. The point about the leaker, though, is she being further victimized in a public way now because
Exactly.
some Democrat decided to pick that atop what she's going through and try to advocate for her? It's just a question.
It's a good point.
Yes.
The Dow, the S&P, hitting new all-time highs today. If you have retirement money, people, take a look. Most of us have a little bit of a nest egg or something. President Trump touting the booming economy both on Wall Street and Main Street. Can it continue? And will it be a game changer in the midterm elections? New signs President Trump's attorneys may be moving closer to a deal for a sit-down interview with special counsel Robert Mueller. So how could that affect the midterms? And should the president be concerned about reports his former attorney Michael Cohen is cooperating with Mueller after that deal he struck? We'll debate it.
This program is brought to you by
Fox News alert, President Trump's lawyers may be moving closer to a deal with special counsel Robert Mueller's team for the president to be interviewed in the Russia probe. A source familiar with the process telling Fox News the president's legal team is, quote, pleased with the progress in talks and believe the odds are in favor of a sit-down, but that it's not likely to happen before the November midterms. This comes amid reports that the president's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, has met with Mueller's team for hours of interviews discussing the president's business dealings in Russia. In the meantime, the president, during an exclusive interview with Sean Hannity before last night's Las Vegas rally, again calling for Mueller to wrap it up. Watch.
It has to come to an end. It's so bad for our country. I call it the witch hunt. It is so bad for our country. And when you see Strzok and Page and McCabe with his lies, he gets fired for lying. You see all of the things, and Comey for lying and leaking. You see what went on. It's got to come to an end. So bad for our country.
Pete, when I hear leaning towards a sit down, I don't know. I feel like I've heard that 1,000 times.
I feel like it's been back. It's like a ping pong. It's gone back and forth. Listen, I'm just grateful to hear that it may be in the fourth quarter, may be nearing an end.
According to James Comey.
According to part of the poison
calling
tree
into
of this
local
whole
radio.
Thing. Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know where it stands. I think the president should do what's in the best interest of his innocence, and that may include some form of a response. And if it wraps it up more quickly, great. But I think he has the confidence of standing there and saying, I didn't do anything wrong. And they haven't found anything wrong. And all we found is that the investigators built their own scheme to try to take him down. And that more of that is coming out day by day, whereas less and less evidence of collusion comes out day by day.
Dagan, I mean, the fact that Michael Cohen sat down and talked about the president's business dealings in Russia, a lot of people get very excited about that. It's not illegal to do business in Russia.
No, one of the things we know from the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Mueller's team earlier this year, in the list of questions they provided to President Trump's legal team, outlined subjects including questions related to Mr. Cohen's activities in trying to get, it was a Trump Tower in Moscow that he was working on around the time of the Trump campaign, the 2016 campaign. Here's the issue, and I've said this all along. This is a perjury trap. The Mueller team would be perfectly happy to nail President Trump on a process crime. No collusion. But again, you don't know what the Mueller team knows. FBI can lie to you, and if you lie to the FBI, it's a crime. It's a felony, and I'm sure his attorneys are cautioning to slow down and think about what happens with this. Again, no collusion, but they're looking to nail obstruction of justice on President Trump because
financial crimes.
Because he fired. You know what? It goes back to they want the tax returns. They want to get inside the Trump organization dealings. The Democrats will stop at nothing, and I think that Bob Mueller's team is playing right into that.
Jessica?
I agree with some of it. I disagree with a good chunk of it as well. I don't think this is about the Democrats stopping at nothing. Bob Mueller, a Republican anyway, has gotten praise from both sides of the aisle, in fact, for how he's conducted this investigation, and he's going about his business. They don't have a lot of leaking coming out there. The financial dealings, when you think about what went on with the Trump Soho building, downtown as well, that was an issue with Russians as well. Obviously, Trump Moscow, the beauty pageant over there. This is someone who has been dealing in Russia a long time. To your point, they haven't found that the president colluded with someone or Don Jr., but they're still looking at these things. They do have a lot of guilty pleas. They do have a lot of indictments so far. And let him go about his business. This whole trying to figure out when it's going to end, everyone has embarrassed themselves time and time again.
Call James Comey and let him know, because he's the one who's doing
not taking
the
my
red
calls.
zone talk right now.
Well, he's walking around in the streets of New York City looking for the spotlight.
Local radio. This was a guy who's, I'm going to be booked on
Local
60
public
Minutes,
radio.
but let me call local. Not to disrespect local radio. They're important too. Pete, real quickly, this also gives, with Michael Cohen, an entree into the siblings, the children, and their finances, and so on and so forth. It allows this investigation to put pressure on different points.
Yeah, not the purpose of the investigation, not the scope of the investigation. He had a job. He should stick to it. It's not about every financial dealing that family's ever had, because they've had a lot of them, made a lot more money than me.
But
all right,
fact.
The wife of a DOJ official who was demoted over his ties to the anti-Trump dossier refusing to testify voluntarily before House committees investigating the Russia probe, whether lawmakers will force Nellie Ohr to appear, and if that would be the right move. Plus, new information on the impending release of declassified FBI Russia investigation documents, what President Trump tweeted, and what a top GOP lawmaker says to expect from those documents.
Once it comes out, American people will get to see exactly how dirty these people were, what they were willing to do, and the lengths that they were willing to go to get a warrant on somebody within a political campaign.
People with type 2 diabetes are excited about the potential.
We were expecting as early as today to see some of the Russia investigation documents, which President Trump has ordered the DOJ on Monday to declassify. But today, earlier, we learned the president tweeting this: I met with the DOJ concerning the declassification of various unredacted documents. The Inspector General has been asked to review these documents on an expedited basis. I believe he will move quickly on this, parenthetically, and hopefully other things which he's looking at. In the end, I can always declassify it if it proves necessary. Speed is very important to me and everyone, exclamation point. The information is expected to include forms from the FISA warrant seeking the authority to spy on one-time Trump campaign aide Carter Page, who had ties to Russia. House Oversight Committee Chair Trey Gowdy reacting to criticism from some former intel officials on the president's move to declassify. He says while there are no bombshells, it should be embarrassing for some people.
I've read it. Some of it's embarrassing for the Department of Justice. Some of it's embarrassing for the FBI. Embarrassment is not a reason to classify something. So a lot of it should be embarrassing to John Brennan. And maybe therein lies why he is so adamant that this information not be released. I've read it. I don't think it's going to change anyone's mind. But I've seen nothing in it that is going to jeopardize the national security interests of this country.
Gowdy's comment coming off the sort of criticism from John Brennan that we've seen before. Watch it.
I think Christopher Wray, Director of FBI, and Dan Coats, Director of National Intelligence, as well as Rod Rosenstein, who is overseeing this investigation, should push back against any directive that is going to have negative impact on our capabilities. If Mr. Trump and the White House does not relent, well, then I think they have some decisions to make, whether or not they're going to just not follow that direction and be fired, or to resign.
So I am a little baffled by Trey Gowdy saying, well, it's not going to change anybody's mind. So why are we seeing it?
Right.
Like, I don't understand. And why can't we see all of it then? And maybe we can make up our own minds.
Well, yeah, I agree with the speed portion. I agree with we need as much sunlight as humanly possible.
That's
I don't
the best
know.
disinfectant.
That's Trey Gowdy's view. He may or may not be right, but I don't want to go through always the Trey Gowdy or the John Brennan filter. American people are smart enough to get a look at something like this. And I understand sources and methods. It's important. But a guy like John Brennan's always going to hide behind that. And what if they use their sources and they use their methods to spy on American citizens and a political candidate in the middle of a presidential cycle? I'm willing to err on the side of exposure, understanding a few things might go wrong in that process, because the sunlight is what's needed to restore faith in institutions that a lot of Americans have lost complete faith in.
You know what I love about how you just put that? It's you're spelling out the stakes in this whole thing, why Americans should care. And that's important for people to know. I also think it's rather important to know that Trey Gowdy and Chairman Nunes don't necessarily see this the same way. Let's watch.
Once it comes out, American people will get to see exactly how dirty these people were, what they were willing to do, and the lengths that they were willing to go to get a warrant on somebody within a political campaign so that they could go and gather up all the emails and correspondence and phone calls and phone records to look at what the campaign was doing when you have one political opponent essentially spying on another.
So, okay, so they kind of see it differently. Maybe it will change minds. We don't know. But Melissa, just what about this point? If one side, as Pete has pointed out, is willing to spy on the other side, why would they be afraid of us finding out why they did it?
I don't know. I'm struck by the idea that he says it's not going to change anyone's mind. Because
Gowdy.
How could Trey Gowdy say that if what's in there is proof of, using this made-up dossier in order to, as part of the FISA warrant? I mean, wouldn't that change Democrats' mind? I mean, it wouldn't change anyone's mind if you knew that the government had gone through, you follow the money. There was money given from the Democrats to Fusion GPS where they made up this fake dossier. Then it was funneled back into the FBI by the wife of the person who was paid to make it, in part. And, he also financially benefited from making it if his wife was paid by Fusion GPS. And then that thing was brought back to the FBI after Steele was discredited.
But if you don't watch
that
Fox,
wouldn't
you don't
change
know much
anyone's
about it.
mind?
I think you do actually know a lot of it, and the New York Times actually, which is not failing, has been covering the Bruce Orr story very closely. Part of the issue with what Devin Nunes was saying in his interview this morning is he's making it out that the FISA warrant on Carter Page started when he was a Trump campaign official, but it didn't. It started before that. So that wasn't about spying on a Trump person. That was about the fact that Carter Page has been bragging for years that he's an advisor to the Kremlin.
What about in terms of knowing about renewed more than once. So at some point he became a campaign person.
He did, but it didn't start that way. And how Devin Nunes is portraying it is as if this was all about we've got to get Trump. This is about we've got to get people that are trading secrets to Russia. You know what? I talked about the text messages before. To the fake dossier point, I don't think it's fair to call it the fake dossier. We don't have evidence that everything in it is disproved.
How about unsubstantiated?
I think
Definitely unverified.
Real quickly.
And there were other sources used to get those warrants.
You know what? Adam Schiff was all up in arms about the selective disclosures and the selective release of all this information. Let's see it all. Why are the Democrats fighting so hard to keep
Why
the
are some in the media not wanting to push hard to get everything out?
They're fighting and screaming to keep the truth away from all Americans. And by the way, with Brennan and Schiff, Chicken Little is embarrassed for them. Given the sky has fallen narrative from these guys, please.
Yes. House Republicans could use the power of the subpoena to compel former Fusion GPS researcher Nellie Orr to testify about her time working as a contractor for Fusion GPS. That, of course, is the research firm behind that unverified anti-Trump dossier. Fox News learning that Orr, wife of demoted Justice Department official Bruce Orr, has refused multiple requests to appear voluntarily before the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, including a deposition planned for today. Meanwhile, the two committees could also seek a subpoena for former FBI General Counsel Jim Baker as they continue to probe the Justice Department's handling of the Russia investigation and allegations of FISA abuse. Dagan, I mean, you know, if they call you to testify, they're not happy with you. So they're not calling you because they want to see you and say hello. So I could see not wanting to go.
Yeah, but subpoena, you don't show up, you prosecute the individual. Unfortunately, Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General, and in the past, he hasn't been willing to do that. When Brian Pagliano refused to show up for 2 subpoenas under Jason Chaffetz on the Oversight Committee, Jeff Sessions said, I'm not touching it. I'm not prosecuting this guy because he's a Clinton crony. So I think that Jeff Sessions running the Justice Department, being the AG at this point, is troublesome. Number 2, though, Bruce Orr, according to Kimberly Straussel's reporting at the Wall Street Journal, this is what is so troubling. Bruce Orr knew that Christopher Steele, he was the conduit between Steele and the FBI, knew that he was trying to go after President Trump. Bruce Orr revealed to Congress, he warned the FBI that its source wasn't credible, alerted the Bureau to Christopher Steele's leanings, and told the Bureau that Nellie Orr, his wife, was working for Fusion and contributing to the dossier project. He delivered this information before the first application to the FISA court against Trump aide Carter Page. They knew that, and they went ahead with it anyway, and the FBI didn't disclose it. There's a lot to unpack for the American people, so we get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and Nellie's in the middle. Maybe they should send her the request in Russian, since she speaks Russian fluently.
Well, is that a problem, knowing another language?
No, but it's like, all part of the pieces of the puzzle.
Oh, that the Democrats are the...
She works for Fusion GPS, so she can work with Christopher Steele, pull out salacious information that's unverified, pan it over to the buddies in the FBI who can try to wash their hands and say, we told everybody about it, but someone higher up in the FBI was in cahoots for hiding it for a FISA application that we all now deserve to see. She should be called to answer these questions, just like Bob Mueller gets to call whoever he wants to ask questions of. It's quite clear, and I don't know how you can deny this. The investigators and the investigation into them, there's a lot more there than anything we're seeing on any amount of Russian collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
Jessica, I mean, I don't know how you can dispute that, because in this case, this is the most obvious one where you just follow the money as it travels from a campaign to Fusion GPS, to Nellie Orr, into her bank account that she shares with Bruce Orr because they're married, and then it goes back to the FBI, his job. I mean, it's a conflict of interest. It's a money trail. It's all of the
It's a money trail, but we're looking for an information trail, too. And, you know, I brought this up yesterday and took a little blowback on social media, not that I care. But it's the pillow talk information. Judge Napolitano and I were talking about this too. So does the money trail then lead you to the information trail that she and her husband were having? That's important too. I mean, he's at the DOJ. She's not.
It is.
He's the one that took the document back. We already know that.
I think that she absolutely should testify. We've talked about it before, whether it's a problem that someone works here and they're married to someone who works there. I think that we have to give people the benefit of the doubt because people are married to people who work in complicated situations.
No, but the reason why that's not fair is because he took her work product back to the FBI. They don't just work in places where
the FBI was working with Fusion JPS. That wasn't just like, hey, honey, here's your orange juice in a file.
No, they already discredited it. And they had already said you couldn't use Christopher Steele.
The only thing more heated that's going on than this conversation is the one in our ears getting us to wrap up.
All right. President Trump touting the economy at a rally in Las Vegas last night as the Dow and the S&P set new records. Will the boom last, and will it pay off for the GOP in the midterms? We'll debate that next.
Almost 4 million jobs created since the election. More Americans are now employed than ever recorded before. Think of that. Today, more Americans are working than ever before. Wages right now are rising and poverty is plummeting. You see it. Poverty is plummeting. Jobless claims just hit a 50-year low, 50. And the stock market today just hit another all-time high.
President Trump touting the booming economy at a rally in Las Vegas last night. As he mentioned that just hours earlier, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, those 30 blue chips, hit a new all-time high yesterday. They did the same thing today. Some are suggesting also the S&P 500. Some are suggesting that this shows investors are shrugging off the escalating trade war between the United States and China with new tariffs. Our tariffs slapped on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports, followed by retaliation from China. The president tweeting this video on his trade moves.
So we've placed massive tariffs on China, and the tariffs have really had a positive impact. Number one, our country's taking in a lot of money. Number two, we're creating jobs like never before. So it's very important that China open its markets to our farmers and everybody else. Because right now they're closed largely, and yet our markets are open to them.
And if we're talking economy, we should mention, just a few of the statistics. The unemployment rate is near an 18-year low. The U.S. economy grew north of 4% in the second quarter, 4.2%. It's likely going to grow at north of 4% the current quarter. Really incredible stuff. The reason, Melissa, that we've reached an even higher growth plateau in this economy, which is almost unheard of, given that this has been going on since 2009.
So that growth rate is really the thing that is so staggering to me, to see that 4.2% improvement. That's how much you're accelerating. And let me explain to you why this is such a bigger deal and is so much more than what President Barack Obama did. Because when Obama inherited the economy, he always said that, look what I inherited and what I made it into. When you're at a standstill, it's easy to go faster. That growth rate should have been huge because you're stopped. So anything is faster. If the economy is already moving, to then accelerate again and push faster at that 4.2%, that's much harder. That's why they say, when you have a crash, you generally have that V-shaped recovery because everything's stalled and then you move back. We didn't have that.
So real quickly to follow up on that.
This is harder to achieve, is my point.
To kind of crack that FBN brain of yours. So also, when you're moving and you accelerate, don't you have to be careful that you accelerate at a sustainable rate, but not too quickly, so that you don't drive things like inflation and recessions and so on and so forth? So it took what I'm saying is it takes manageability to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would say we should be so lucky. Right. We would accelerate so fast.
Inflation is, I would embrace it at this point. Inflation is not crazy. That's why the Federal Reserve is there to...
You get wage inflation.
Right, exactly. We want to see wage inflation in this country. In fact, wages are growing in the most recent month at the fastest pace since the recovery started in 2009.
I think when most people say inflation, though, they mean the cost of things.
But the cost of things is still contained, and people are still, wages are still growing faster than the rate of inflation in this country. Disposable income, even after inflation, is growing at about a 3% year over year.
I think it's interesting when the Democrats try to sort of trash talk money and say that it's really not better, people aren't feeling well. I mean, Jessica, do you feel like that's something that's going to sell in the midterms?
No, I don't. It depends on the district. I think that in super liberal districts, they want to hear all about how Obama saved us from the Bush economy and brought us back, and then President Trump is, just going off of Obama's fumes. That'll work there. But if you look at the campaigns that are being run in the middle of in Ohio and in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they're not saying that. They're saying, we're happy that consumer confidence is up. We're happy if you have an extra $1,000 in your bank account. But you know what? I can get you more. And that's how Democrats are going to win.
But
I don't know.
But I want to say that, you know what? This economy isn't running on fumes. That there is gasoline in this tank, and it was tax cuts, and it's deregulated.
It started off. They're saying they started off of the fumes of Obama, but I think if you're an average voter, you don't do like we do every day and try to tease out the latest news nugget and who wins and who loses. You're looking at your life and the quality of your life. Do you have a better job? Do you have more prospects? Are your wages up? Are you confident? Can you open a small business? I think those things are going to matter as the noise.
But healthcare is going to matter the most, which is an economic issue. Well, that's what's being rated as the #1 issue, and Democrats are winning on that by over 10 points.
Free stuff.
It's not free.
But you know what?
No, they want
Nancy
Obamacare. They want
Pelosi told the American people
protected.
that $2,000 was crumbs. It's just pathetic crumbs. You know
but that's
what?
not what I'm talking about, David. I'm talking about health care.
A family of 4 for more than 2 months.
I'm talking about health care.
That's deafness. Deafness by the Democrats.
I would love to have $2,000 and good health care.
Heaping praise on Nevada's incumbent senator while ripping his Democratic opponent. Apparently falling into line with Republicans when it comes to midterm messaging. Whether the change will get Republicans to the polls in droves, we debate.
Remember this. Dean's Democrat opponent, Wacky Jackie Rosen, she doesn't get it.
We are the TV doctors of America, and we may not know much about medicine, but we know a lot about trauma.
Dean has led the effort in Congress to fully fund Veterans Affairs. It's a big deal, and he's been really great. He really has. So I just want to say there's been no better friend. You don't want it. A vote for Wacky Jackie is a vote for the extreme agenda of those people. That's Pelosi, Schumer, Waters.
President Trump stumping in Nevada last night for incumbent Republican Senator Dean Heller and unveiling one of his typical nicknames for Heller's Democratic challenger, freshman Congresswoman Jackie Rosen. The president heaping praise on Heller, a former critic of his, now locked in a tight re-election race. President Trump also dialing back his talk of a, quote, red wave in the midterms after some in his party expressed concerns it may send the wrong message.
Promise me, you got to get out for the mid. Don't be complacent. You got to get out for the midterm. You got to vote. You got to vote. We need more Republicans. You know, when they say we have a majority, it's like this. It's like this. If somebody has a cold, we don't have a majority that day. It's like we have to have more Republicans in office. We'll get everything we want so fast.
I really like that when he said it's like if someone has a cold, we won't have a majority anymore, which is basically what's going on here. Yeah. I thought he was actually, besides the Brett Kavanaugh comments, which I think you should stay away from generally, I thought he was pretty on point last night.
Yeah, I mean, his political instincts got him to where he is when everyone told him to do something else. And even now, you can see it with the shutdown conversation about the wall. I personally would love to see that showdown now. I think his political instincts want that showdown now because I don't think Republicans really ever want to give it to him. And if the House of Representatives is in balance, it sure as heck isn't going to get that wall funding. So his instincts have served him well. Nicknames have served him well, love him or hate him. It's repetition and clarity that people remember. The question will be who has the most energy. The Dems are running on hate and resistance, and I think Republicans have to remember it's Trump
and
that's
the
on
Republicans
ballot.
who scream "lock her up" are running on what?
They're running on. Well, it's a chant at a rally, but the reality is Republicans are running on, ultimately, Trump is on the ballot in 2018. His agenda, do you want to continue it? Do you want the economic numbers that we talked about that were fueled by this president? That's what
Well, what do you make of the fact, though? So Jackie Rosen is a first-term congresswoman, very, very low name ID, and they're within the margin of error here with Dean Heller, who is a well-known senator. What do you think is going to happen here? And what do you think it says about what's going on that she is really neck and neck with someone with such a bigger profile?
Bigger profile, maybe the Trump rally helps Heller. But
he's been all over the map.
But I keep looking at these 10 Democratic senators that are up for re-election in states that Trump won. Half of those 10 states Trump won by double digits. So I'm curious to see as President Trump moves around the country if he starts doing rallies in places like Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at Nevada. I mean, Heller has the distinction of being the only one running one of those toss-up states, but Hillary won that one, and everyone in Nevada strikes me as just angry. I mean, if you look at the numbers for everyone involved, they're all underwater. Trump's underwater there. Heller himself is underwater in terms of their negatives being higher than their positives. That is just a frustrated state right now. So it'd be interesting to see if that rally actually helps Heller. I think those 10 races are so interesting, and it really shows you that all politics is local, because what everybody is battling in their own home state is different in the set of circumstances that they're under and how much the president is liked. And he's trying to go out and lend his support in all these toss-up states, but the makeup of the constituency there is really the only thing that matters.
All politics is local, but it's also all national in this cycle. I mean, a guy like Dean Heller is a textbook case of someone who kind of embraced the president a little bit. Right. And this is a president with over 90% popularity within his own party. Trump supporters don't love that half in, half out. It can really hurt a candidate. And we saw it even in 2016. If you were all in, you did better than someone who tried to play the local angle and the national angle.
Well, Heller even said himself, I've been with the president
about
80% of things,
which
might not be enough for a Trump supporter.
But it zero for Democrats.
But I've thought all along that the message needs to be with the tax cuts. We Republicans think you, the American people, make better decisions with your own money. You earned it. You get to keep more of it. I don't think Democrats think government. They make better decisions about your life.
But it is more, obviously the economy is going to be number one, number two, alongside with healthcare there. Immigration is a huge deal in Nevada. And it's got to be a lot more than just you have more money in your bank account. It has to be a more nuanced argument, which is what Jackie Rosen is doing. But we're going to be back in a few minutes, a few minutes of commercial break. More Outnumbered in just those minutes.